If you have built a try-catch block, let's say the try block is opening a file, the catch block is determining what to do if the file doesn't exist. Well, what about after that? What do you do after the file has been opened? What if the file was there? You want to actually close it. For that, you need to have a finally block that will run whether or not the try block succeeds. Let me show you how that's done. When you're writing exceptions, you may want to create an exception, process an exception, if there is an exception, and then clean up your code. Let me show you what I'm talking about, or perhaps display a message. And I'm going to create a finally block here, and I'm going to say very simply, I'm going to have a main, and I'm going to say try. I'm going to say file handle, and I'm going to open file1.txt, and I'm going to say that I want to print for every line in the file handle. I want to print the line itself, like so. And then if there's an exception, I want to say that there was an exception. There was an error. And save that. And then I want to execute my main procedure. I want to run this, and I want to type Python finally. And here it is. It's printing the contents of the file. Well, that's all nice and easy. How about when I have a problem? I change the file name to xfile1, and it says there was an error, very simply. What if I wanted to figure out, in this particular instance, what if I wanted to ignore the error? I could say pass, ignore the error, and it now displays no message at all. Okay. What if I wanted to do cleanup? Right? What if I wanted to do cleanup and display something? I could say finally, right over here, and finally will run whether there was an exception or not. Finally will always be the last piece of the code that executes. So right over here, I could say print all work was done, like so. Save it and run it, and now you can see it says all work was done. Because there was an error here, it never printed anything because there was an error opening the file. It ignored the exception, and then it executed the finally block. I can make this a little bit more useful. I could say counter equals 0. Right down here, I could increment a value of 1 in the counter. Right over here, I could say print, like so. Then I could say print there were errors in the process. And I could do counter like so. And let me show you the whole thing here. And close that, save it. Go right over here. Now when I run this, it says there were 1 errors in the process. And the reason for that is because when it went to the exception block, right before it ignored it, I incremented the counter, which has been specified right here. Counter remains 0 when there are no errors. And it turns into 1 when there is an error. So if I change this file to the correct file name, file1.txt, now it will run the file and it will say there were 0 errors in the process. So that's the way you run the finally block. It runs whether or not there's an exception.